Hey, Math 7-8, this is Mrs. Cervantes, representing Mrs. Servati. Unfortunately, Mrs. Talati's not here to do the video with me. They're much more fun when we're together doing them, but because of meetings, sometimes we won't be able to do them together. So I will be going over lesson 1.4, applying addition and subtraction of integers. With you guys, your essential question today is I can solve multi-step problems involving addition and subtraction of integers. Some of the vocab that we're going to go over today come straight from the questions. They're not necessarily math concepts, they're just words that we, in order to understand what you need to do in the problem, what operations to use, you need to understand what these words mean. And these are some of the words in the past that some kids and students did not know. So the first one is withdrawal. If we talk about a withdrawal, we're talking about the action of taking something out. In most instances, when you see this in a word problem in math, an example of this would be a withdrawal of $5 can be represented as -5. So if I'm withdrawing $5 out of the bank, I can represent that as -5. The next word would be descends, which means to move or fall downward. If he descends by 8 feet, it can be represented by -8. So descends means going downward, and that would represent a negative motion, so it would be a negative number. Ascends would mean to go up or climb or rise. So an example of this might be if the balloon ascends 20 yards, that would be represented by a +20. So those are some of the words that you might see in some of the word problems. So just making sure you know what those are. Okay, pause your video and write those words down. And my computer's being slow, so hang on 1 second. Okay, a seal is swimming. If you look at your notes and guided practice, sorry. It says a seal is swimming in the ocean 5 feet below sea level. It dives down 12 feet to catch some fish. Then the seal swims 8 feet up towards the surface with its catch. What is the seal's final elevation relative to sea level? So if you look over here at your diagram, and you'll want to do this in your, it's my pen not working. Hang on 1 second. You'll want to do this in your notebook sometimes, or even on a test or wherever. You will sometimes need to draw a diagram. And diagrams and models can be really helpful in doing this. So if you look here, you're looking at the seal starting at 5 feet below sea level, which is a -5. So the seal starting at -5 here. Then it says it dives down 12 feet. So they're showing you that it goes down 12 feet. I know it's hard to see on the screen. He goes down 12 feet. And then the seal swims up 8 feet. So then they're showing you again the upward movement of +8. And it's asking you, what is the seal's final elevation relative to sea level? Well, if you're looking at and drawing it on a number line, or it can be vertical or horizontal, it makes more sense to be vertical in this one because you're talking about sea level. If we were to write this out as a math problem though, we would look at the fact that the seal, and we're going to write our expression, started at -5, which is below sea level. The below indicates the negative. It dives down 12 more feet. So down 12 would be a -12. And then the seal swims 8 feet up, which would be a +8. So this would be your expression. And then step 2 would be to follow order of operations to solve this. So step 2, don't forget that when you're adding and subtracting, you go left to right. So step 2, I would take my problem, -5 -12 +8, and I need to work left to right on that. So I'm going to say -5 -12, which you guys know now. We never look at it as if it's subtraction. We always think of subtraction now as adding the opposite. So -5 and -12, they're same signs. You add and keep the sign. So we say that that's -17. And now I can add 8. And so then if we're looking at -17 +8, you need to think of your rules for adding integers. They're different signs. So you subtract the absolute values, which gives you 9. And you keep the sign of the bigger group. Your bigger group is 17. Has 17 chips, and this has 8 yellow chips, 17 red chips. The bigger group is negative, so you keep -9. So what is the seal's final elevation relative to sea level? You would say 9 feet below sea level. So the key here in writing your answer is to answer word problems with words. And it's saying relative to sea level. So what's its final elevation when you compare it to sea level? Sea level is 0. So I would not want to say, I'm going to show you what you don't want to do. You don't say -9 feet below sea level, because that would be a double negative. Your below, the word below indicates that that is a -9. So your final answer should be just 9 feet below sea level. Okay? And then make sure, again, what's important is that you're following order of operations right here, and you're doing your addition and subtraction left to right. Okay, your next problem. Irene has a checking account. On Monday, she writes a check for $160 for groceries. Then she deposits $125. Finally, she writes another check for $40. What was the total change in the amount in Irene's account? So I'm going to underline, she writes a $160 check. She deposits $125. Ooh, we probably should have put deposits in our vocab. Deposits is to put the money into. So add it to your account. So finally she writes another check for $40. And then it's asking you what's the total change, okay? So on Monday, if she writes a check for $160 for groceries, what's the change in her account? If she writes a check, she's -160. She's taking that out of her account because she wrote the check. Then it says she deposits $125. Then she adds $125 back to her account. And finally, she writes another check for $40. So then we're going to subtract out another $40. And it's saying, what's the total change? So again, from here, you need to do order of ops, order of operations, and you guys know that when there's addition and subtraction, you move left to right. So I'm going to do these two first. And I know my rule for adding integers with two different signs is to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger group. So 160 minus 125 gives me, what do I get? 35. And the sign on my bigger group is negative, the 160. So it's -35. And then I'm going to take away 40 more. Okay? So my last step is to subtract 40. We know, again, we're not looking at them like subtraction problems. We are adding the opposite. So if I look now and solve this, I'm adding two integers with the same signs. So your rule says keep the sign and add them together. So if we're looking at what was the total change in the amount in Irene's account, her account changed by $75. We could also say, because it just says what was the total change in the amount in Irene's account, we could say that her account, instead of saying changed, we could say decreased, because it's -75. We could say that it decreased by $75 if we want to be more specific. Okay? Let's look at the last one. The Tigers, a football team, must gain 10 yards in the next 4 plays to keep possession of the ball. The Tigers lose 12 yards, gain 5 yards, lose 8 yards, and gain 14 yards. Do the Tigers maintain possession of the ball? Okay, so we know they have to gain 10 yards, so +10 in order to keep possession. Now let's look at what happened in the next 4 plays. So in the next 4 plays, they lost 12 yards. They gained 5 yards. That's a +5. Then they lose 8 yards. That's a -8. And then they gain 14 yards. So here's my expression. And we need to solve the expression using order of operations first and see if we end up with a +10 or higher. So again, left to right. If I'm moving left to right, -12 plus 5, same signs or different signs? They're different, so I subtract and I keep the sign of the bigger group. Now I can do minus 8, which really becomes plus negative 8, which gives me same signs, add and keep. So 15 with my negative, so negative 15. And then I have a plus 14. And then we look here, and that is different signs, so you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger group. So my answer is negative 1. So now, to answer the question, do the Tigers maintain possession of the ball? It says in the very opening sentence that they must gain 10 yards in the next 4 plays in order to maintain possession. So they lost 1 yard in those 4 plays. So no, they do not. No, they don't, or however you want to say it, maintain possession of the ball. Okay, so remember, answer words with words. There's a little more information given to you in that problem. If you're then following your order of operations, you can solve it and then look back at your question and make sure that you were answering this question, okay? All right, then your additional practice. You have, don't worry about the numbering on these. This would be a 2. We cut and paste sometimes from different resources, and so these are not numbered in order. Make sure you read the questions, underline what's important, and set up your problems correctly with the signs. And again, follow order of operations. Addition and subtraction is left to right, okay? All right, you guys, have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.